Take your seats, please. It is Monday, January 10th. This is the Public Safety Committee. I'm Councilman Smith, Chair, joined by Council Members Cardenas and Zine. We have a number of consent items. Before we do those, we had one general question to the CAO or the Police Department generally, and that was Mr. Zine wanted to know if some of these grant-funded approvals allow cash overtime within the department. Yes. So they do allow that. So those people you working in those units would get the cash overtime, if necessary. If necessary.
It's allowed.
It's allowed. All right. With that being the case, we will consent the following items. If you're here on items 1, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14, 15, or 16, those are generally grant approvals or reward approvals, and we will consent those forward to the council with approval of the committee. And there's no cards on any of those. So if you're here on those, bye-bye. Have a nice day. Go spend the money.
Wisely.
Wisely. Lots of overtime for Dennis's friends. Okay. We'll begin with item number 1. Item 2. Yeah, just scared everybody running out the door. 2.
John White, City Clerk. Item 2 is a Board of Fire Commissioners report relative to the Fire Department Special Training Fund Account 002R, Fiscal Year 2008-09 Annual Report.
Morning, sir. How are you this morning?
Good morning.
How's our firefighter from last night doing?
He's doing well. They're continuing tests at USC.
Very good. Thank you.
Council members, before you is just our annual report, reporting on the LAFD Special Training Fund. The funds generated in this account are generated from training that LAFD members do, and this is an accounting of over the last fiscal year of how the expenses that were made from that account, what training programs were provided for the department. Do you have any specific questions?
Mr. Curtis does.
Yes. Thank you. Training could be a lot of things, I'm sure. However, this account, what is the dictated guidelines of this account? And can you give me an example of most recently the latitude of some of the training that these dollars have gone toward?
Per the ordinance establishing this account, this can cover any training courses. It can cover the expense for contracting for a trainer. It can cover equipment that's utilized for training. It can cover expenses to send people away to training courses. The most current we have in an RFP that's going out right now for leadership training for the fire department, for a vendor to provide leadership training to the department, and with that it also has rolled into that a human relations and EMT training into that same program.
Mm-hmm. So now, is it confined to just training that helps our firefighters when it comes to the physical, mastering the physical part of their work? How about when it comes to training? Let me just cut to the chase, and I already have another motion on this that we'll have some really robust discussions on these matters. But as a council, we go into closed session quite often, and unfortunately, the most common closed session item when we're sitting with our city attorneys when it comes to lawsuits is people not respecting people in the workplace. It's not so much the constituent suing us or our fire department or our police department for, an accident that occurred or that somebody didn't do their job right and a constituent lost a limb or was egreged in some fashion. It's usually because somebody within the department, the fire department, feels that they were egreged by a colleague or their management or what have you. Can this fund be used for that kind of training where we get people to understand that aside from the tough, hard work that you do when you go out to the scene, how about when you're in the facility and
Absolutely, sir.
Problems are caused.
The RFP that's about to go out, that leadership training, human relations training, and the EMT training, it's exactly about that. That leadership portion deals with the work environment issues and how our leaders, leadership and followership. And then the human relations training deals directly with work environment issues.
Okay.
So yes, this training fund can and is used for those types of training.
Okay. Now, when the department chooses to utilize this fund, whether it's training on how to use an axe better, or it's training on as we just dialogued, on how to work in your environment better with your colleagues, on either one, what is the process for the department to determine that that money is going to be utilized in that fashion and commit that money and expend that money? Is it a commission vote and decision before the money is expended, or is it an administrative matter that the chief /and/or whoever has that signature authority within the department gets to expend the money? Because the money is already within the department.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so,
It's a fire chief, sir.
okay, so basically it's an administrative decision and signature, et cetera. It's not required to go to the commission, not required to go to the commission and/or the council, et cetera.
It is not. We report back on it on an annual basis as to what the training was at the department.
Okay, thank you. My last question is this. This report appears to, unless I read it wrong, as you can see, I have to kind of lean back when I read. I'm in denial about my glasses. No, thank you, Dennis. No, thank you. Greg. It says fiscal year 08-09 report. Is this the kind of money that the state gives us at the end of their fiscal year? So therefore, our report lags a year, or?
It does lag behind. I believe they pay us twice a year is when we get the funds.
Okay, and I'm sure they pay us twice as late as they can on both times.
Absolutely.
So, okay, so basically, we're looking at the information that truly is the most accurate information that you can give us at this time.
Accurate, incurred, and up to date, yes, sir.
Exactly, because we're actually in fiscal year 10-11,
Correct.
and this is 8-9, so what's as soon as we can hear a report on 9-10 expenditures and account?
They can print a partial report of where we're at for expenditures as soon as we request it. They wait until they get the entire year to put together before they submit it to the Fire Commission.
Okay, all right. If you could let my office know what dates we've been receiving the money over the last few years.
Okay, and we submitted that report to your staff as well as the up-to-date expenses from the vet account.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Zine.
Just a couple follow-up questions regarding the state expenditures. Where's that money coming? That comes from the state, but with the state budget, as desperate as it is, how do they acquire those funds?
It's a vocational education training fund that provides an hour per hour.
But how do they generate? Does it come out of a fee? Does the state just say, well, we're going to take care of our firefighters?
Comes
Because
from-
Sir, I do not know.
General
Yeah.
fund, yeah.
Because I can see with the state budget, as tight as it is, those funds may dry up.
That's a possibility, sir.
And if it does, then those programs then evaporate.
Unfortunately, then we have to, once again, try to find funds within the department's budget in order to accomplish those training needs, which would definitely have an impact on our ongoing training.
Training is obviously critical, it's very important, and I know that with the revolving training funds that, like, Peace Officer Standard and Training has, people don't pay fines, those fines don't generate the dollars. I think we may look into how another source to try and continue those training programs if the funds do dry up, because you're looking at 1.5 from the state, and I would not bank on seeing the state coming with additional training funds with all of the pressing matters they have. The other question I have is, it mentions East LA College. I know some of the other community colleges, some community colleges have fire science safety programs. Is it strictly with East LA, or do they spread it through the other community colleges and other institutions in the region?
My understanding of the program is you have to be affiliated with a college, and East LA College has that affiliation agreement with the Los Angeles Fire Department.
What about the other ones?
You only need a single college to have the affiliation in order to collect the funds.
Okay. Because I'm thinking of folks in the valley or on the west side, for them to travel to East LA in the traffic.
They don't need to, the funds, the affiliation with the Los Angeles Fire Department and the college is just so that it's fire department training on duty that generates the revenue.
Oh, it
So-
doesn't have to be at that site, though?
No.
Okay, it's just at the clearinghouse?
Correct.
Okay, all right, very good. Good programs. And the aspect of street survival training for women, what is that?
I am unfamiliar with that specific program, sir. I can,
It does aircraft rescue, firefighting, helicopter simulation, this, et cetera, but street survival training for women, I'm kind of curious as to what that's about,
we'll report back to your office on that.
that particular category. Wildland, I mean, all those we understand. I'm trying to figure out, is there some unique threat in firefighting to women versus males, street survival? It just creates a,
Is that for women firefighters or women in general public?
It would be women firefighters if it was.
So it's women firefighters.
it's street survival training for women.
Okay.
Trying to figure out what that is.
Okay.
I'm sure it's legitimate, I'm just trying to figure out where it comes from.
Absolutely. I'll get more information
Okay,
for you,
thank
sir.
you.
Okay, so we'll have that back to Mr. Zine and us before it goes to the council floor?
Yes.
If you get the information, appreciate that.
And you're going to figure out, keep your fingers crossed, and find out where the state's getting the money to continue to pass it down to local government. Hopefully, it's not the general fund.
Absolutely,
Hopefully, it's
sir.
a special fund.
Let's hope not.
Aren't you the former budget?
Yes, but
Yeah, that's why
I
he's
don't remember
asking.
where we sent that money.
That's why he's asking, he knows.
Because if it's general fund, we're bad news.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So with those questions and report back before council floor, we will move this forward with approval of committee. No objections.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Item
Well,
4.
Let's have 4 and 5 together since they're on basically the same.
4 and 5. Item 4 is communication from the mayor and CEO report relative to a modification of the 2007 UASI program budget for the fire department's night vision enhancement program. Item 5, communication from the mayor and CEO report relative to another modification of the UASI budget, this time for additional contract authorities for the emergency management and police departments.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Counting, I didn't know you didn't ever wear a uniform. I thought you slept in your uniform.
Usually do.
You look very dapper today,
It's at the
sir.
cleaners.
Okay.
That one that you rotate, huh?
CAO, yeah.
Hi, good morning. Maria Ramos with Office of the CAO. The Mayor's Office is requesting authority to modify the 2007 Urban Uwasi's Security Initiative grant budget for the police, fire, and emergency management departments. The grant performance period and the total grant award remain unchanged.
Please, have anything, or do you want questions?
I just wanted to provide a little background on one of our modifications relative to 10,000 volts, in case there was any question. As you know, last year we installed the Hydra suite at the ARTC, which was the first in the United States, which is that critical simulations decision-making model that we've used several times in the city. And this is a precursor to that. We currently have an officer in England doing a Fulbright on 10,000 volts, and this is a debriefing tool which allows us to identify gaps so that we create Hydra scenarios. So this is kind of the complete package to that. And again, we will be the first in the United States to have this type of technology.
What, tell me a little bit, what is the technology? I mean,
Well, Hydra, as you know, is the critical decisions-making model that we put in, where you have either terrorism cases. We recently did a serial homicide case and brought in all the detective COs and area COs. It could be any kind of problem that you have that you want to put through a simulation and have policymakers on a certain suite, tactical people, strategic people in certain suites, and you come up with better ways of handling a situation. So if you cut the head off Hydra, you know, more heads grow. So if you don't handle a problem correctly, you have a more complicated and complex problem than you started with. The 10,000 volt suite is actually designed to identify what are some of the gaps that we have, whether they're terrorism scenarios or detective work or patrol work. And it's a debriefing tool where you bring people from different disciplines into a room. They're all hooked up on a networked laptop computer system. They provide feedback. The technology analyzes their input and comes up with scenarios that we could actually go ahead and make a Hydra scenario for. They use it in the UK all the time. They used it on the shooting, the Stockwell shooting. They use it whenever you have problems. It's a good kind of tool to bring in. So you bring in all the experts, multidisciplinary, to develop a scenario where we can improve critical decision making.
very good. I have just a couple questions. First, for the fire department, on the night vision goggles, which I fully support and think it's a great idea. I want to make sure the RFP is going to be for the newest, best technology, because I know that former Chief Gates had been working with a company, had taken night vision goggles a whole nother level. It's like the difference between 3D and high def. So I want to make sure we get the best, not just the lowest bid.
No, these are the best on the market.
Okay. And that'll be the newest technology that's out there.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
And secondly, on the enhanced incident management and unified command, I know the police department at least went through this, I think a joint exercise with the fire department years ago, where we really trained the entire department on incident command, which was a requirement. Is this going to be the money spent here just for departmental command staff, or is it really departmental-wide training, additional training?
You speaking with the fire or police, I'm sorry?
Either one.
I'm not aware of the fire department's portion. I'm
Okay.
the commander of air operations. I'm here as a subject matter expert for the night vision goggle program.
So on the police side, is that the unified command training going to be for department-wide or just command staff?
As I understand it, it's department-wide.
Department-wide, okay. And then I know it's something that Mr. Cardenas probably want to talk about, and he's been very out front on disability, working with our disability community. I would just want to make sure that on the non-English, limited English, and disability training we're going to do for a sheltering response, that we really promote that well. One thing we do is we draft these great ideas, but we don't always promote it well. I want to make sure that we work with communities like Cal State Northridge, which has one of the biggest hearing impaired programs in the country. We work with the people in those communities to let them know that we're doing this. And the same goes for the emergency building education program, which I know EMD works on, and the fire department, that we really promote these things to let people know while there's restrictions going on in government services that these are important to us and that we're still doing it.
Yep, those are yours, yeah. That's EMD.
Yeah, I know. I know her well. So yeah, the answer is yes, you plan on some promotional campaign.
Anna Burton with the Emergency Management Department. Yeah, for the two projects specific to the high-rise training as well as the shelter and the cots, we are working with both the Department on Disability as well as various organizations that serve the disabled community to make sure access and functional needs communities are involved in the development as well as on scene when the equipment is used.
Okay, great. That's what I want to make sure. And then the last question goes to something I've been saying for like 6 months now. Sat phones, and it's something I know EMD put very high on their list. We had a promise from the mayor's office 9 months ago that they were going to apply somewhere in UASI or something for sat phone capability for the police and fire departments and EMD. Is that anywhere in?
They are currently being included within an 07 transmittal. It's not included in this report right now. We're still waiting for full state approval on that single project that includes the purchase of satellite phones.
Right.
Not the maintenance or the use, strictly the purchase.
Yes, that's fine. We just get them in our hands, we'll figure out the rest, and ITA will mess it up for us.
Yes.
No question?
I've got a couple of the night vision for the fire department. The military has really advanced in their technology. Are we working with them at all to see regarding the latest technology with night vision goggles for our firefighters as they use in the military?
Mr. Zine, the goggles that we selected were the exact same goggles that the military is operating over in the Middle East with. They're through a vendor that is called Aviation Services Unlimited. They're out of Idaho, and they're the sole source vendor for that particular goggle. They're also the ones that sell directly to the military.
So we didn't really have to do a lot of research. We're just using basically what the Army has already researched to find the latest.
We did research, and from the research we found out those are the ones the military is using.
Okay, because I understand that they're using the best technology available.
Yes, sir.
At this particular time, and I know it continues to change. So, and then the other question I had for the police department, what is Critical Simulations Limited, CSL? Who is that? Is that a law enforcement? Is it a federal?
Yeah, he works part-time for the Met in the United Kingdom, and he was the founder and developer of Hydra. He's also the founder and developer of 10,000 Volts and does these suites all over the world. There's 58 Hydra suites that are supported by 10,000 Volt scenarios, and we're the first in the U.S. So his name is Jonathan Crago. He's a Ph.D.
So was he in law enforcement, or is he just,
He is in law enforcement more as a psychiatrist, behavioral science doctor, but he does a lot of, he's in charge of the METS training program in the United Kingdom, and this is a job that he's kind of sidelined that he does in addition to his responsibilities at the training department of the Met.
so he is a law enforcement officer?
He works for law enforcement, but he's a civilian.
Okay. Is it kind of like that verbal judo we went through many years ago? You remember that guy, the verbal judo?
Yeah, he's different than that guy.
Okay. So I just think, you broaden out their careers, and I'd never heard of that before, but
Yeah.
if it works, it works.
It works.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, for the record, we've been joined by Councilmembers Reyes and Perry. Welcome. Do you have any questions on this item? No? Okay. And that will be moved forward with the committee's approval. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
But you got two items moving forward, right?
We'll take 10, 11 together.
4 and 5, that was 4 and 5.
We did 4 and 5, we're done.
Together.
Yeah. 4 and 5 moved together.
Item 10, City
11.
Planning Report and Ordinance enabling the posting of monetary rewards for burglary crimes similar to the rewards offered for crimes of graffiti and illegal dumping pursuant to motion, Rule 9. And item 11, City Attorney Report and Ordinance allowing the city to offer rewards for information leading to the arrest and conviction of individuals who assault or shoot off-duty police officers pursuant to motion, Mizar Smith.
Thank you. City Attorney here, or? Oop.
We got the police
Okay.
here.
They're right outside the door, so we'll come right back to that in a minute then. Or, yeah, let's come back to them. Let's go to item number 12 then.
Item 12, Board of Police Commissioners report relative to the Narcotics Analysis Laboratory Trust Fund Expenditure Plan. Number 15, for related travel and training expenses incurred by the Police Department.
Good morning.
Good morning, Yvette Sanchez-Owens. I'm the Commanding Officer of Scientific Investigation Division.
I had a quick question on this. I hope they're quick. It looks, I'm a little confused by the language in here. We're giving the law that will enable us to collect $50 fee at time of conviction to recover costs incurred by the department. So this is a new system we're putting into place that the law allows us to do?
No, this has been a longstanding situation. I don't know how long, but at least 10 years.
Okay, because I didn't see any budget attached. So how much are we getting annually from that?
I don't know annually. I would have to get that for you.
How much, are we talking a lot of money here? Are we talking a little bit of money?
A few $100,000 every year.
Well, there was a day and time that didn't matter much. That matters a lot these days. So.
Yeah,
And is that-
I can get that for you.
Okay, is that put into a trust fund that allows, that keeps it within the department?
Yes.
Okay, so the money that comes in goes directly back to what expenditures then?
It's good for training our employees. I think that's the only thing that it's used for, just training, continuing education for our employees and training for new hires to get them up to speed to be able to do casework.
Okay. You know what, if there's no objection, I'd like to just bring this back in 2 weeks, or next week if we have a committee meeting next week. I'd like to see a budget for it and see exactly what's coming in, what's going out, so we know what's going on there.
It also shows, Mr. Chair, equipment.
Yeah.
Shows equipment and training.
Yes, that's right.
So what type of equipment?
But that, yeah, I think, well, if we just look at the budget, we'll understand what's going on with the fund. It's not, and, you know, it's not that I don't trust you, I do. I have great respect for you, obviously. But I know over the years, some of the previous chiefs were using money in ways that the council probably wouldn't have approved, particularly when it came to the
Okay.
asset
Forfeiture.
forfeiture fund. Yeah, it was, which is a lot of money. So anyway, I'd just like to see what we're doing with it. I think the committee would like to see that if we could.
Will do.
All right, we'll bring this back.
Okay.
Now we're ready for 10, 11?
10 and 11. I believe staff is here for that report.
Good morning.
Morning, how you doing?
Deputy City Attorney Brian Satelli. And 10 and 11 are similar. Related. There were 3 requests. One was to expand the rewards for burglaries or Part 1 type crimes. The other request was to provide for on a reward where an officer or public safety personnel is injured or slain and they're off duty or outside the city of L.A. In addition, once this, about a year ago, this panel had convened and also wanted to revise the maximum limits for certain types of crimes. So we tried to encompass all that into the revisions of the ordinance. So if you had any specific questions, I could speak to those, or I could just go through every provision of the ordinance, whatever you...
My biggest concern, obviously, is my other hat I wear as Vice Chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, is what are the limitations on this that we don't get into? I mean, we have significant number of nonviolent crimes in the city that could be and would be every council member's choice to go out and find the criminal who's doing this stuff. So how do we have a check on it? How do we have a constraint on it? What are the minimum standards so that it's not abused? I don't want us to get into the situation where we're giving out a dozen of these rewards every single week and then find out that it's impacting the budget $5 million a year or something like that.
Correct. Well, I think what's critical is that it has to lead to the arrest or conviction of the alleged perpetrator.
Yeah.
And what came out of this was that they wanted these Part 1 type crimes to also be included, like the theft from motor vehicle or larceny type crimes, in addition to where we had several instances where officers were, I guess, at their home or and they didn't live in the city of Los Angeles, and they wanted some recourse or encourage witnesses to come forward with information leading to...
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I don't think anyone's opposed to that, and I think it's a very small number. The bigger number is when you just talk about Part 1 crimes, theft from motor vehicle, there's like a dozen of those a day in my Devonshire division alone.
Right.
So how do we determine that I, as a council member, don't come in with repetitive motions every single day for the solving of these one crimes, rather than it's a ring that's going on, or something that indicates it's more than just a theft from motor vehicle?
I think the council member would have to bring a motion forward to the council and discuss it.
Yeah, but that's not the point. I mean, that's what we'd have to do.
Okay.
The point is, it could be abused. We certainly don't abuse it with homicides because there's just not that many, or really significant crimes. There's not that many. But there's a significant number of Part 1 nonviolent crimes every single day in this city and every single division. So I just don't want it to be abused. How do we put a check and balance and constraint on that, saying you don't just come in because there was two guys that stole a couple of computers out of cars at Northridge Fashion Center, but rather that over the period of a week we had 25 of them. That's significant.
Well, I think that's a policy decision to the council to make.
Right.
It's not necessarily a legal issue that we could put into the ordinance.
Councilman Smith, may I just address that? The committee or the makers of the motion, the original motions, did not ask our office to put constraints on these. They simply asked that the existing reward process be in place, which is, as you know, that, a majority of the council actually have to approve the offer of the reward. So that's the check right now.
Okay. I get it.
If the council wanted more constraints, then they would have to tell us.
As a policy, not in the ordinance.
Well, unless you wanted us to put it in the ordinance.
Well, can you put in the ordinance those kind of constraints?
But you'd have to tell us what you want those constraints to be.
Let's have that. We'll continue with that discussion. Mr. Carter's first raised hand. Mr. Reyes.
Real quick, the current reward guidelines and requirements as to what we need to do formally in order to enact a reward. From my office's experience, the custom and practice is that there's dialogue between the police department first and whoever it is that's going to carry a motion or consider it. The dialogue first is that the police department says, we need this help. Right? So, but I can see what you're saying.
It's not a requirement.
It's not a requirement. It's custom and
You do
practice.
it.
Exactly. It's custom and practice. So I agree with you that when you're looking at it, perhaps the ratio might be of those kinds of Part 1 crimes, you might have the number that occur in one day in the city might be the number of homicides in an entire year. So when you just look at the ratio of opportunity for people to not abuse it in a bad way, but convolute it into all of a sudden it becomes so darn mundane that every single crime, it seems, has some kind of reward attached to it. So I can understand your concern when you just look at the dramatic volume difference of opportunity for having a gazillion rewards when we look back on a given year or 6 months versus right now, even with the rewards around homicides, it's still probably maybe a dozen a year or so. I'm just guessing. It's in the dozens, no question about it, for an entire year of the second largest city in the country. But in this particular case, I agree with you, Chairman, maybe on this particular kind of reward process, we should have much more formal requirements rather than the custom and practice that I don't think has been abused when it comes to the rewards on the homicide. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes?
Thank you. Along the lines of that thought process, we talked to the concerns of the LAPD. Was there any discussion that has how the detectives are part of that decision-making? Usually we speak to the detectives, we don't want to have an award unless it's timely. And so there's a sensitive process we go through. I hate to claim that there's so many different issues in my district regarding homicides, and so I'm very careful as to when we do these motions. With term limits and folks wanting to abuse it, I mean, you can actually see cameras coming to these events, and I'm not saying people using poor judgment, but as a precaution. Did we ever talk to, or is there any feedback from the detectives and how this would affect their performance?
Well, perhaps the department could speak to that issue, but I want to point out that the existing administrative code still provides for the recovery of property damage. So this adds a couple more crimes to the list, if you would say. However, my experience is with graffiti rewards. I have somewhat experience in that respect, and I know that the detectives do work on those issues and present those cases to you,
Right.
to see whether they're timely or not.
Right.
On the general rewards, I personally haven't had any experience working on those issues, just drafting the ordinance.
Well, if there are no detectives here or police department, but perhaps we should create a threshold, some kind of language that speaks to their input and make sure that is part of the discussion so that we can verify their priorities so that we don't make things more complicated for them, because it's a whole different world than what we are used to, and I think we should acknowledge that particularly. Right now it's kind of done subtly, or it's done because we understand it, but if we're going to be putting forth these kinds of rewards, the volume will increase. So I think those thresholds should be more formalized.
Councilman Smith, I'm sorry, Mr. Zine. There are representatives from the police department that are present that might be able to shed some light on it. But also, I don't have the existing code in front of me, but I know that Mr. Sotilli does. I think what is being missed is that currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, currently the administrative code allows for the council to offer rewards on anything. Anything leading to injury, anything leading to death, any property crimes. So it hasn't been abused at this point. I think the additional provisions actually clarified that there are maximum amounts depending on, obviously, the severity of the crimes. So
But that
this really
maximum amount,
isn't adding more
well,
other than limits.
yeah, and that maximum amount is 75,000 by policy now, I think?
I think the new amendments go up to 100,000 for public safety personnel.
For violent crimes involving city public safety officers, 100,000.
Okay.
Right.
For the outside, for the regular rewards, it's,
It goes from 10,000.
no, this is what this proposal is. I'm saying what the current law says.
Oh, the current.
The
Brian, can
current,
you
the
say
current
what
proposal's 10,000 for, say, part.
No, not the proposal
Okay.
before us, the current law that we
current-
have on the books.
The current law on the books is 75,000 for
75,
public
right.
safety personnel.
Okay. Mr. Zine?
The two issues, if you want to have protection, I can understand that. I've never seen it abused. And whatever motion comes forward has to be approved by the council by a majority to have it passed. I've never seen it not pass, and I've never, in my 9 years, never seen it abused. But if you want to put some conditions, we could put a condition on the property crimes, not on the other issues, but on the property crimes, at the request of the police department, number one. And secondly, if you want to put a property value, that property must reach a certain level in order to qualify. In other words, if you have someone who steals a bicycle, or, someone stealing bicycles for $10 bicycles versus $1,000 bicycles, if you want to put a dollar value to have some kind of a protection to say it wouldn't be abused, to be cautious. But I still think that with the consciousness of the council, the ones I've seen are horrendous cases, and I can understand putting conditions so it's not abused, but I would say request of the police department would be the primary, and then if we want to put a dollar value, whatever that dollar value would be, agreeable to.
Yeah, I was going to suggest the first one as well. That's by request of the department. I think the concern I have is the four of us sitting here have been here a long time around this city, but with term limits that changes and institutional knowledge leaves. So what we are doing now as a council may not be what the next council is going to do, and the council after that, which is a concern. So I think we need to put something in policy, and again, it's in policy. And I think we can do it in the budget and finance policy because that's easily changeable without an ordinance. So what I would ask, and I think...
But remember, anything that we put in,
we can
future
change.
council
That's
can
true.
change.
I understand that. But it needs to be flexible, so if you put a dollar amount in, you'd have to change it sooner or later because bicycles in 10 years will be not $100, it'll be $150 or whatever. Yeah. So there's going to be change necessary somewhere along the line anyway. And the easiest way to do that is in budget policy rather than an ordinance form, because then you got to change an ordinance. So what I would suggest is, first of all, your suggestion about department requests, it's been the policy that's unwritten. I think all of us follow that. But we need to codify that. And secondly, request to either the commission and or the department to come back with a criteria to use on property-related nonviolent crimes. What would they suggest be the criteria that their command staff at the divisions know that's when you can go to the council and request it?
Right, Captain? Captains? We got two captains in here.
Got a couple captains, we got a commission executive officer and a detective.
We got detectives.
One of you guys want to take? The department will figure it out. Thank you very much, Mr. T. Thank you.
What about 11? What about 11?
Well, why don't we go forward with 11 right now? I personally have no objection to that. It's a small number. And again, just add the requirement by department request.
Okay. Well, actually, they're both in the same draft ordinance.
Oh, they're on the same ordinance. Okay.
Yeah, they're combined in one ordinance. And
okay.
Also, I just want a clarification. Is the committee asking that the ordinance be, the draft ordinance be amended to require that the request for a reward come from the police department? Correct. To a council member who can then bring it forward to the council?
Yeah. And then
That's on number 10.
Yeah, so we can, no, on 10, 11, they're combining them.
Well, yeah, but 11, you don't have to have a request from the police department when an officer's, or do you want?
Well, you should. You should, because the department may determine it was just a local thug stealing his bicycle versus a action directed against a police officer because they knew he was a cop.
Both from the department, okay.
So if you're combining them into one ordinance, I think we can clearly delineate that it's by request of the department.
And I know detectives in the past, when I've offered that, they've said, well, we don't need it now.
Yep.
When we need it, we'll tell you.
Yes.
So they're the ones.
Usually they do that, yeah.
That leave it up to them to make it.
So we can go forward with an ordinance draft. Have you got was this a final draft, what we saw here?
This is a final draft. I'm just wondering if that minor of a change, if that's all we're changing, that we could do that and bring it to full council.
I would suggest we make this, the minor change would be that the police department will draft a policy statement on what is the criteria for requesting rewards and leave it at that. That way it's changeable at any time. So let the police, say the police department shall draft a policy statement on which crimes will be requested of a council member to issue a reward.
Okay,
and that way...
I want the ordinance to be amended slightly to say that these rewards shall be at the request of the police department to the council.
Right.
So that minor change we can make and then just bring that draft
Is that good with everybody?
to the council.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay.
That shall be the order? Yeah, we'll come back with a final...
Do you want it here?
Well, if you're only adding that one sentence, we can go to the floor and just make sure it's correct.
Yeah, do it on the council.
We'll do it on the council floor when you're ready with that final change.
That way we don't have to drag it on.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right?
Okay.
That'd be the order. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Item number 10 had a public card. Dr. Williams. Morning.
Good morning. Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno, Northeast LA. While you're at it, maybe the city attorney should be looking at posting monetary rewards for brush clearance. Just as an example, here's part of a list that was approved by City Council for the lot cleaning. Over 10,000 lots need to be cleaned and have penalties against them. 10,000 times, say, $500 a piece? Ooh, that's a lot of money. One of the questions is, are there brush clearance areas that require brush being cleared? Because it relates to the entire redeployment of fire engines during this coming summer. And with the rains that we've had, expect a lot of fuel out there on those slopes. There are a lot of places which have not been cleaned for many years, and that apparently there's a tacit compliance between Public Works and Fire Department regarding, we'll leave those because somebody has objected to clearing brush or something, but we have to redeploy fire engines from other areas that don't have the brush. There's commonly a correlation. Those areas without brush are commonly on the lowlands and lower income areas. Those areas that have a lot of brush are north of Los Feliz. They're in Mount Washington. They're in CD2. They're in various places. So I'd like to have the city attorney examine the potential of nonviolent crimes as to not clearing your brush and causing a fire. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, then the committee report will go forward as amended. Thank you very much. This is item number 13.
Item 13 is a police department report relative to the status and activities of the supplemental police account for the period July through September 2010.
Sorry, Councilman, I don't have staff here on this. Maybe I can take a question back, or...
Councilmember Zine had a question, I believe.
I did.
You did, didn't you? Nope.
I don't believe so.
Well,
Typically goes on consent, so
Yep.
that's why I didn't send staff.
Yeah, originally it was on consent, and I pulled it off for somebody's request, but maybe not. So, no questions on number
I
13?
don't believe so.
I don't remember.
Cardenas had a question.
Cardenas maybe had it, yeah. He's gone? Sorry about that. Nope, he didn't either. Thank you very much, Detective. Good job. That'll move forward. You go. I know you're going to go back, tell Chief Beck I saved this one for you, but that's...
Yeah, he will.
Note and file?
Note and file?
That's a note and
Great note and file?
That's a note and file, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the conclusion of today's agenda. We have one public comment. Dr. Williams.
Good morning. Dr. Clyde Williams, El Sereno. This afternoon, the Budget and Finance Committee will be looking at budget item number 7, brush clearance, my frequent comment point. Here is a situation, we have the most stringent fire requirements in the United States and thereby probably in the world regarding brush and wildfires. However, we have to redeploy equipment during the summer. And this year, we don't have as much equipment to redeploy. It seems a kind of no-brainer. Fire prevention is cheaper than suppression control. So why aren't areas cleared of the brush? If the areas were cleared, they would pose virtually no fire risk. You can't get much to burn if there's not much fuel. However, we have the situation where even the fire department doesn't know how to apply their own rules. They applied rules, but then some people have to comply with those rules, some people don't. And that's not right. So it's very simple. The public safety, the brush clearance, seems like a slam dunk. So why can't we get it done? I don't know. I do know that the fire department brush clearance unit has less than 20 people in it, and there's over 130,000 lots that are defined as in the very high severity fire hazard areas. So it seems like maybe do it as a public-private partnership. There are nonprofits that have some qualifications in brush clearance and fire prevention and such like that. The neighborhood councils, I believe, would try to help, because last year we got all sorts of complaints from the citizens. So maybe this year we can do better, because the brush season is coming.
Thank you very much. That concludes today's agenda.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Great job, Greg.
And by the way, we wanted to say how nice it was.
I just think you look great in the color.
For you, live, they did, I am.
Homage to the fact that we beat UCLA 4 games in a row, or?
It really brings
Yeah, it's good.
really brings out your eyes.
Yeah, but in basketball, we've never had one of those cycles.
No, we never will.
Chief, good morning, sir. Go ahead. Good to see you. Happy New Year.
Okay.